What's going on, guys? I have a video about the parts cost sheet, which is a very large part of the way we do business. This sheet is how we control costs, and even better yet, I would say know our costs, really know costs. And by costs, I mean literally everything we spend money on, spending, ideally to the dollar or the penny, hopefully. The other thing we like to do is, because we know our costs, we can know our profits. The other thing is that it does it weekly, so we have speed. Because we have these three things, costs, know our profits, we can do our payroll weekly as well. And not only can we do our payroll weekly, we know your guys' commissions on a weekly basis. This just allows us to make changes very quickly. This sheet is, man, it's incredible. This is really how our pay plans work, right? Or I'll just say this sheet is the foundation of our pay plans, right? This is how we monitor our pay plans, how we administer our pay plans, if you want to say administer. So it does many things, really, and I'm sure I'm missing many things. Another thing it does, through the insert of the data that we have, the manual entry of data, it allows us to do something called audit or repair orders. This is huge. Again, this is done weekly, and I keep emphasizing that this sheet is a weekly sheet, in contrast to a profit and loss statement, which is done monthly, as our P&Ls are done monthly. So versus monthly P&Ls. And we still do those, but this is why we run our parts cost sheet program. And there's many other things, but these are the big ones. So let's dive into what the sheet is and how we input data into that sheet and how it affects you. So the parts cost sheet is a three-part sheet, really. And you have a section here that's labeled parts. And you have the total for that section here. We'll talk about the total and then the adjustment, and we'll talk about those two things. So this is number one. The parts is in section number one. Staff is section number two, and essentially this whole section will be about our team. It says the back of the house, total, and then you have the section that is based on all your metrics, and we'll talk about that. So this is really a three-part sheet. Metrics. So let's talk about the parts. The parts section is really just built into, it's just days, right? It's just, you have all the days in here. There's now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we've got really 7. You have miscellaneous, and then you have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We talked about our daily scans on the other videos. Each day is a scan. So what we do is we go through our scan for Monday, and we go through all the ROs. And with each RO, as you guys know, there is a invoice with parts. And what we do is we just go line by line and we enter all the parts invoices, boom. And that's all we do, really. We just flip through it and we add it. And at the end, it spits out a total. And then we do the same thing for Tuesday and Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and Saturday. And at the end, what you get is a total for your parts. So you basically have sales, we enter here for your week, and you have parts for your week from above here, right? All this goes down to here. And you put in your total sales. Say in this case we did $100,000. It's a great week, and then you had $30,000 in parts. So it spits out your parts cost. It actually does it automatically. 30%. Oh no. So what we do is we do an adjustment. And an adjustment is really simple. It's basically a factor that automatically populates. And in this case, the math is fairly simple. You would think that if you did 30,000, our goal parts cost is always what? 20%. That's what we're trying to do. So you're 10% over. So in essence, you would think that you would subtract, I don't want you guys to know my password. You would think that if you did $30,000 of parts and you did $100,000 in sales, you did 30%. So we would just take $10,000 off of each, right? You take $10,000 off the top of sales and you take $10,000 off of parts, and the math would math. Unfortunately, it's not that simple, but it's fairly close. So if you took $10,000 off this parts, so you brought it down to 20, and you took $10,000 off of sales, you're down to 90, you're at 22% parts cost. So you're not quite at 20. The number is probably close to like a 12. So you would bring that, $12,000 adjustment roughly, right? And how would you do that? You would do 30,000 minus 12, it would be 18,000 divided by 100,000 minus 12 is 88. And look at that, it's very close to 12,000, right? So it's probably 12,500. And that is our factor that we would use. And that would be the subtraction of the adjustment because we were over by $12,500. So the new sales would be, you'd take the 100,000 minus 12,500, and you'd get something like 87,500 because that's what your true sales is, and then you would put in your parts factor, which is $30,000 minus 12,500. Because remember, the 12,500 was the overage, and your parts total would be down here. And this is adjustment, adjusted parts, adjusted sales is 17,500. Let's check our math to see if we're within that 20%. And look at that, right on the money. So because now you're 85,500, let's talk about what that means for the team. So the team's pay comes from three things, right? It comes from sales after the 20% adjustments has been made, which over here is 87,500. It comes from their bonus number. And let's say this bonus number for this team is $35,000 a week. Remember, bonus number is your overhead. That includes all of your base pays, 20% allocation for parts in there as well, and essentially all our bills. And essentially that would leave you with bonus dollars. So you would take this number, subtract that number, and you would end up with bonus dollars, which, let's do the math, 87,500 minus 35,000 leaves you with 52,000, if I can write, 52,500, that's a 2. And that would be the number that the team gets a percentage of. So we're just going to do one person's pay here. Say you are a front of the house person or a back of the house. Everybody gets paid the same. And you are getting paid $1,200 base pay. And the way that would be paid to you is hourly and overtime. So when you see your check, you'll see three categories. You will see hourly hourly pay, which is up to 40 hours, and that would be somewhere close to about $800. You would get your overtime pay, but probably about $400. And then you would get the best pay, which is your commission. And your commission would be off of the 52,500. And say you are a 5%er, you're a killer, you would get a $2,600.25 check. That is a 5% a high level guy in our company. So you add all these up, and this goes down for every single person, by the way. So when I see the sheet, I see every single person's name on this side. I see all their hourly up to 40 hours here, their overtime here, and then their commission here. And if they have PTO, there's a separate column for that. And I see all of this every single week, for every single person in the company, because I have a sheet for every shop. And this is just for one shop. This sheet right here is literally a spreadsheet. And this person would have made $38.25, right? And there's a total here. $38.25 for this person, and then that person, obviously this is a good paycheck. It's a $200,000 guy or girl. And you get $38.25, and then boom, it adds up. And generally what we want our staff cost to be is about 27%. Now, if it goes above 27%, this bonus number goes up. If it goes below 25%, that number will actually come down. More on that later. But essentially, if your staff cost climbs, it's not an arbitrary thing that Zane says your bonus number will go up. No, it's because now we're spending too much on staff compared to the sales that we're doing. Cool. So what's the lesson here? By doing what I just showed you guys, every single week, what your parts cost is in dollars and in percentage of sales, and your adjustment that you have to make, aka your waste. But each one of these gives you something different which you can use as data. You also know what your staff cost is, because again, you're paying commission, which essentially you know what your costs are, right? So you know what your staff cost is in dollars, and you put in percentage, and your adjustment that you need to make because your bonus number goes up based on aka waste. So if your bonus number is now going up by $4,000, that maybe it's time to offload somebody. Maybe it's time to get rid of somebody, to move them to a different store, or what have you. Or maybe it's time to hire somebody because you're too low and there's carryover work. You have a $20,000 bonus number, but you're left with $10,000 worth of work that could have been done, so maybe it's time to hire people. You're too lean. So each one of these allows you to understand the business, which it really is coming down to parts and staff. It's not a complicated business, guys. If you know what your parts cost and staff cost is, your fixed expenses don't really change. That's why they're called fixed. And you know what your fixed expenses are, approximately within $1,000, right? If you rent shops, you should know your fixed expenses on a weekly basis within $1,000. What you do is you take your monthly fixed expenses and divide it by 4.3, and you should know your weekly fixed expenses. And if you know all those three things, then guess what? Whether you are profiting or you are losing, right? You don't need to wait till the end of the month to know whether you made money or you lost money. And guess what that allows you to do? It allows you to make decisions 4.3 times faster, and I would argue 5.3 times faster, because generally the P&L for most people for the previous month gets to you on the 10th or the 15th of the following month. And by then, we've already made 4 or 5 times more decisions, better quality and better speed decisions, before the P&L even hit our competitor's desk. So this sheet allows us to control these things. Not only that, it allows us to motivate the team because they're getting their commission check every single week. They love that. I've never had someone say I prefer my check less frequently. So this is the format. I have the spreadsheet that you can see, but I like doing everything on paper because it's hard to screw it up. It's not that complicated. You have a part section you fill out, you use the scans, this auto-populates, all of this auto-populates. The only thing you manually enter is the part side. And you might be like, well, Zane, what if he's inaccurate? We have buffers built into this, and I will tell you right now, after 15 years of doing this, by the grace of God, we've been within 1% generally at the end of the month. When the actual P&L comes in, we're usually within 1 to 2%. And whenever we've been more than that, it's because there was something funky happening and we were able to catch it very quickly because we knew that we had some other data, so we weren't surprised. And if something was surprising, we knew there was something that funky that was going on. We were able to catch it very fast. It is a lot of work, but it allows you to make decisions quickly and it makes you money. And one of my mentors told me that never let hard accounting stop you from making your business more efficient and making money. Sometimes making more money will make accounting a nightmare, and you should embrace that. Sorry if you're an accountant, but this is what it takes to run a world-class auto shop. I hope it helps, and again, if you don't like it, if this is someone you're watching from outside in, just keep an open mind. Again, all of this is an experiment. Every business that has ever been run is really an experiment. So it's worked out for us, and if it continues to work out, we'll continue. I hope it helps. Thank you very much.